Hello and welcome back to my channel about financial education and budgeting. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about the 10 things that I never buy. In fact, I think they're a massive waste of money, and I'm going to try and tell you why I think that. So if you're interested, then keep watching this video. Before we start, I just want to say a big thank you to everyone who's been liking, commenting and subscribing. That really helps me out, so thank you, you're awesome. So moving on to number one. So the first one is drinks. So obviously we need to drink something to survive, so you can't just not drink anything at all. But what I like to do, because most drinks that you would buy are really overpriced. If you compare them to water that you can get from your house, you can buy a big bottle and you can just carry it around with you. That is so cheap. And everything compared to that is super expensive. Even if your drink is like $1, well, compared to the water you get from your tap, that is almost free. That's how cheap it is. And even when going to restaurants, I would also usually get the free water there. And even if they don't have it on the menu, well, you can just ask for it, because most of the time they'll give it to you anyway. And this is also the same for alcoholic drinks. So I would never buy drinks in bars or clubs or pubs or anything like that, because they're so overpriced, they're so expensive. What I would do instead is I would get some friends to come over, or maybe I would go to their house and we would just buy alcohol or drinks from a supermarket, and we would drink at home, just have a fun time by ourselves. And then when it gets to a bit later, then we would go out, and by that point, we've already spent several hours at home, so we don't really need to buy any drinks in the bars or clubs, and we save so much money from that, like so much. So moving on to number two. Number two is eating out at restaurants or using food delivery services. So these are obviously way more expensive than if you make it yourself, because they have to pay someone to make it on top of the price of the food. You're just paying for the price of the food, and then you're making it yourself. So you can actually meal prep and make tons of meals at the same time. So this will make it much faster and easier and just more convenient for you to eat at home. You can do that on maybe a weekend day, and then for the rest of the week you're just set to go. You just take your pre-prepared meal, put it in the microwave, and then eat it. So you really will notice a massive difference in how much money you have at the end of the month if you don't eat out, because eating out, it can be so expensive. Okay, and moving on to number three. So number three is designer clothes. Now, big brand names and designer clothes, they're super expensive, and I just think it's not necessary. For me, I would be much happier buying a $10 t-shirt or buying, a $5 even t-shirt than spending loads of money on something with a big brand. And there's quite a lot of reasons for this. One is because, well, I'm not really someone that cares that much about big brands. Number two is, I think just trying to impress other people is never really worth it. If someone's gonna think differently of me based on the brand that's written on my shirt, then that's not really someone that I would probably get on with that well anyway. And so some of you might have noticed that this is in fact a Burberry shirt. And for those of you that don't know, Burberry shirts can go up to $600. So obviously I've worn this shirt for a reason, because I've just spoken about how I would never buy something like this. So the reason that I've worn this is because I actually bought this in a market for around $30. That's obviously way cheaper than what it would be in a shop, and this is just something that I think is cool. I've always liked these. When I grew up in England, I'd always see their adverts on the TV, and I just always thought this is a very iconic shirt. I just think it's cool. So I don't mind paying $30 for it in a market, because it's so much cheaper. And I wore this to kind of show you that you can still buy nice things, but you just have to go about it a different way. Maybe wait for the sale, or maybe wait for that particular season to throw everything out. So if you buy winter clothes in the summer, often they'll be way cheaper. You do have to wait like 6 months before you can actually wear them. But for me, I think it's worth it, because I'm paying often like 50% or less of the price. Sometimes things are reduced by like 90% depending on what it is. And another thing that I like to do is I like to buy more classic, timeless things that They never really go out of style. I'm not the most fashionable person, but I do know that I can wear black fitted jeans forever, and that will never look weird. It will never go out of style. So that's another way that I kind of get around spending a lot of money on clothes. Okay, so number 4 is transportation. Now, again, I'm not really about impressing other people, just like I don't often really buy designer clothes unless it's something I really like. So I don't really need a flashy car or anything like that. In fact, actually for me personally, I prefer to use public transport. I've always lived in cities where the public transport is very good. So I've way preferred that over buying a car because cars are really expensive. First you have to buy it, you have the fuel, you have the insurance, you have all those other things that go with it. And not to mention that, the second that you drive it off the parking lot, off the car dealership, it loses so much value, and it's only going to keep losing value from there. So for those reasons, I would really, really never want to buy a car. Even if I did buy a car, if I lived in a place where I had to, I would be driving around in the most cheap, as long as it's safe, as long as it does its job, that's fine for me. I'm not really caring if people think that I'm poor or anything because I'm not in a nice car. So yeah, that again, I never ever spend money on that. I always spend money on public transport because it's super fast and it's super cheap in every place that I've ever lived. Okay, so the next one is subscriptions. So this is things like Netflix. Now, I've never really understood why people want to pay for things like this because there's so much free content on the internet and loads of it's amazing. There's everything that you could ever want. There's free movies, there's free TV shows, there's so much free educational stuff so you can learn more things. There's just so much free stuff on the internet. So for me, I just feel like it would just be a waste of money to pay for that. Obviously, it's not a huge amount, but it really can start adding up, especially if you're trying to save money. It's just an extra thing that you're having to spend when you could, if you wanted to, be watching other things for free. And the next one is convenient holidays. So notice I said convenient. I'm not giving up holidays completely, but what I'm doing is I'm making them convenient for my money rather than convenient for my time. So instead of me choosing where I want to go and then buying the tickets, I would look at the tickets first and see where's really cheap, and then I would go there. A lot of the time, the world is an amazing place. We can find some really amazing places by doing that. I've been to so many really cool places that I would never have even thought of because the flights were super cheap and I felt like exploring. If you're going to the places that everyone else wants to go at the same time as everyone else, it's probably going to be expensive. So if I want to go to these places that everyone's wanting to go all the time, I would wait until there's a cheap flight there, which often it does happen. Sometimes different seasons are much cheaper. Maybe in the summer it's super expensive to go there, but in the winter it's super cheap. Now, obviously you need to look at this by case basis because every place is different. But for me, I've managed to travel to so many places and loads of them are normally really expensive, but I just went at different times. I actually did quite a few other things to get a lot of free travel. So I will be making another video about this in the future, but just for this video, just keep it simple. Convenient holidays are usually very, very expensive. So you want to try and check to minimize the cost of those. Okay, moving on to the next one. So this one's also quite controversial, and that is addictive substances. So this could include things like smoking. There's actually been quite a lot of research done into this, that if you were spending the money that you were using on smoking, if you were investing that instead, then actually over a lifetime, you really could be making massive amounts, even up to $1 million. So the amount that goes into things like smoking or other things like that, it really does add up a lot over time. So that's just another one that I personally don't spend money on. So the next one is something that I really like and I have to stop myself buying, and that is electronics and gadgets. So I really want a new phone. I really, really want one. But I recognize what I want and what I need for my life are two different things. The phone that I have, it works completely fine, does everything that I need it to do. I don't actually need it to do any more. The new phone that I want, it will only be a slight improvement. It's not like it has new things that this phone can't do. So I just put it off. I also want a new laptop, but again, I recognize that the one I have, it completely functions fine, and it's just my kind of wants. So I really, really keep myself in check here and just keep reminding myself, they're so expensive, it's like $1,000. I'll just buy another one in the future and then it'll be an even better one. because of course, as soon as you buy electronics, similar to a car, it's pretty much out of date straight away because there'll be a new, better one again next year. Number 9 is one that really annoys me, and that is warranties or guarantees or things like that. So a lot of the time products or things, they come with this additional warranty or guarantee, like, hey, do you want to be safe in case your thing breaks? We'll replace it for you. Well, I really don't like that, because most things, they already come with a guarantee from the manufacturer. So even if you break it, the manufacturer is going to replace it anyway. And oftentimes those guarantees, they're like 1 or 2 years. So for me, I think if I break something after 2 years, then, well, with the amount of money that I spent paying for the cover or the warranty or whatever, well, I probably could have just bought a new one if I'd saved all that money. So that's something that I rarely ever buy. Obviously, you do need to look at it case by case basis. You know, like if it's things like health insurance or something like that, then you really obviously do need to be thinking about that differently, because you want to take care of yourself. I don't want anyone out there thinking that I'm telling them not to care about health insurance, because your health is important. So I'm mostly just talking about products here, and you need to be thinking about the amount of money that you're spending, whether you're getting a guarantee from the manufacturer, and if this amount of money that you're spending, could you put it to an upgrade? Could you buy a new one in a few years when the other guarantee is over? Think about things like that, and if you start thinking about it that way, you won't want to pay for these warranties or things either. Okay, so moving on to the last one. This is the one that I hate the most, and it's also the one that's the most dangerous. So this is financial services or bank services. So what I mean by this is it can include those ATMs, the cash machines that charge you money to withdraw your money. I really hate those, by the way, but that's another topic for another time. So I don't ever use those. But the main thing I'm talking about here is interest on debt. Now, I do understand that there are some good kinds of debts, because I'm sure there's people shouting at their screens right now about student debt or mortgages. Those are examples of debt that can help you in the future to make more money. So I'm not talking about those kind of debt. What I'm talking about is debt for products or consumer debt. So the reason that I hate this so much is because sometimes it just instantly makes the thing more expensive, but oftentimes it's more subtle. You're buying it now, but if you don't like instantly pay it off, then the interest, they will make you pay more for it over time. So what many people do is they just pay the minimum payments, and they completely forget that this like rest of the money is being charged a really high rate of interest. So while you're just paying this bit is getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And for me, it just doesn't feel good to be giving the bank all of my money when, I don't have to be. So that's why if I ever do buy anything on debt, I try to pay the debt off as fast as possible to get rid of that extra high charge on the money. But actually what I tend to do is I tend to just wait and, build towards something. And that's because I find, for me personally, if I'm building towards something, I appreciate it way more when I get it. If I could just have everything that I want right now, then it would be cool for a bit, but I probably would just, get bored of it, or I wouldn't appreciate it as much. So those are the 10 things that I never spend money on and I think are a waste of money. So maybe you know some different ones. Leave them in the comments below if there's something that I missed out or you have a great tip to share. Otherwise, thank you for watching and bye-bye.